All right, so Sean O'Malley on his podcast talked about the White House card, all the updates coming with it. Again, I'm thinking about a video to do with like the renderings that they showed us and kind of what I think this event will play out as. This is more what I think this event really means beyond MMA, beyond us as fight fans who, you know, on average, 300,000 people buy a pay per view. However many people watch Fight Night cards, right? But this is going to be, you know, kind of like our Roman Coliseum event. This will be a one of one. This will be something that hasn't been done ever. And there's a lot of crucial parts to this card that I'm gonna talk about. That if you stick around, I want to know how you, as an individual, look at this game. But let's continue on. He talked about Charlie Kirk's memorial. Um, I'll just talk about that really quick and probably I was gonna tie it into the end of the video, man. It's whether you believe in God, you don't believe in God, you go to church, whatever denomination you have. This event has really, really been a breaking point to everyone, regardless of what political side you're on, what religion you're on. This to me, I hate to say it, but it's kind of the same as how 9/11 was. And I was born 3 years after where, you have this event that happens and the world stops and the world gets scared and they panic and they try and find an answer too quick, which we all do, regardless of where you are. But let's listen to Sean O'Malley talk about the White House.
I don't know. I do the same thing sometimes.
The thing about me is like I know shit.
Yeah, dude.
Like when I fucking say something, I just it's right. Speaking of the government, White House card, UFC White House card, dude. When that first got announced, like that was happening. When was that? Like around 4th of July, and then Dana or no, Trump was the one like we're having fights at the White House, and then Dana all of a sudden is like, all right, fuck it, we're having fights at the White House.
So if you guys are out of the loop somehow, months ago, around July 4th this year, Donald Trump announced that he is doing a White House card for UFC, but he also said he's going to have amateur bouts, which is something that I I need to make a video on that. Maybe I'll go to regionals. I do have an idea with how you can kind of do like a mini Ultimate Fighter at the White House card. I'm gonna save that for later. But what Sean O'Malley does here, whether you want him in the main event or not, he is the only fighter as of what are we at September 23, 2025. This guy is the only active fighter who's really out here trying to make a statement.
House. That thing blew up. I'm a few months late on it, talking about it. I guess it keeps circulating because
Connor was on Fox News talking about it, saying
yeah.
Michael Chandler.
Damn, Connor was on Fox News. I want to fight that guy.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Ah.
You changed Australian at the end.
That was bad.
You kind of fucked it up.
Fuck, mate. I don't know. But yeah, who's gonna main event that? John Jones wants to do it. Dana said not happening. Pulled out too many times. Said yes. Said no. That's not happening. Dana's saying nope. Ain't happening. John Jones wanted to headline. I mean, you got to have John Jones. Do you have to have an American headline it? You're at the White House. I mean,
No.
Chandler.
No, throw Russian on there.
I mean, you're
Huh. So when it comes to the main event, right, You have that side where it's the White House card. You need an American in the event, which is why John Jones versus Tom Aspinall makes the most sense for the main event at the White House. However, you also have to factor in who your stars are, who brings people into the sport. That is Ilya Taporia, a Georgian. That's Islam Makhachev from Dagestan. That's Hamza Chimaev from Chechnya, Abu Dhabi. You know, the amount of American fighters at the top right now, it's slim. It's slim. We don't have an American champion for the first time in a while. Again, Americans hold the most belts, but these European countries are having their reign of dominance in MMA. They are building the right teams. Again, when I was growing up, it was the Brazilians, right? It was you had the black Zillions weren't really. That was the Shot Evans. But like you had the Nogueira brothers, you had GDS, you had Jose Aldo, so you had all of those guys, right? But to me, the most important part of this card for the UFC is to show everybody in the world what you, as the company, want this sport to be.
One has to fight the other. So I'm like, you have to have at least one American in the main event.
You have to.
Okay, so like,
I mean, at the White House.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Conor versus Chandler. Chandler just lost to Patty. That isn't there as much. It's not as big. It's not as exciting as when Chandler was.
He lost to Patty the Batty.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Patty's fucking good. He proved that he was as good as he says he is, and it's a big fight. Ilya headlining it versus who would he fight? That's an American. I mean, Ilya versus Patty wouldn't make sense just because they're not American. But as far as like super fights, big fights, that makes.
Do not save Ilya versus Gaethje for the July 4th card. I will scream. I will actually scream. If Ilya Abdelaziz manages to get Justin Gaethje into the White House event off of one win against Rafael Fiziev, first of all, that would just solidify him as the greatest manager to ever do it, which he is. There's no doubt about it. Go look at the list of names that he represents. He represents half of the champions and over 80% of the top contenders in the UFC, and he owns all of, he signed all of these upcoming guys, right? I'll keep my full opinion to myself on that. But, it's difficult. It really is. When you're talking about Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, a fight that was supposed to happen back in 2022, you do have to talk about what Conor was up to at that stage. You gotta talk about the bar fights, the lawsuits, all that stuff. It's one of the biggest sins in MMA, right? That the biggest star in the sport had it all go to his head, and he's realizing too late that he missed out on what he truly loved, which was the fight game itself. He was the one that said, partying is weakness to the soul. And it got him, right? And up until the saga after the Floyd Mayweather fight, Conor McGregor was, and Dana White always says it, one of the most dependable fighters we have ever had. You want to know the difference between Conor McGregor and Ilya Topuria, Conor McGregor and Hamza Chimaev? Is that at any moment, the UFC could call him up with any name, and he's like, alright, let's get it done. And even as somebody who was never a Conor's fan, I respect that. You know, Conor McGregor played the game of chess, going from welfare to a multimillionaire, probably a billionaire. Again, all of these Forbes lists and all of these, real net worths and that, it's nowhere near most of these guys, right? But like, it's also the biggest comeback story. If you were to have the biggest star in the sport headline the White House with everything that has been surrounding him, and he gets that win, that would be the ultimate opportunity of redemption. And, you know, when you look at him, you look at all the interviews he did back in the day, you look at D. Devlin, who is still to this day by his side. D. Devlin was the one that was providing for him before this started. Like many of these fighters go through. Dustin Poirier, right? His wife drove him to each fight that he had, win or lose. And I think that Connor and D, they have an agreement. I think D is like, all right, do your thing, make sure me and the kids are provided for. Don't knock up another girl. I sound like that, right? But again, to Connor, he used his queen to get to his king, which was Dana White, and will always be Dana White. Dana White was the one that gave Connor the platform, and Connor was the one that put all of the tools together that Dana White for decades has been telling fighters, this is what you need to do. He did exactly what Chuck Liddell did back in the day. Chuck Liddell, before a bit before my time, right? But longest knockout streak in UFC history, which culminated in the title run. Um, all those knockouts were insane. We don't need to talk about how his career ended. But after, Dana White convinced him to retire, the third title fight never happened. Shut up. He gave him a desk job. He brought him in the company. He said, you will be the first UFC superstar. They had stars back in the day, right? They had, you know, people talk about Tank Abbott, Don Fry, um, Dan Severn, those guys, BJ Penn, Diaz brothers. Each of those guys played their character. And you have more of the WWE back in the day, which I think was a good thing. And what I mean by that is we got some banter. We got shit talking at every press conference. Like, dude, eh, the press conferences should have nothing to do with John Morgan or whoever they give a media pass to. Us as fans just want to watch these guys who are going to fight each other, talk a bunch of shit, and say some funny shit that we can clip and get views off on get views of our own articles. But like you look at, and I'm by the way, like this is completely not what I had planned for this video, but you look at the UFC rankings, right? How shit they are. I know. Um, but pound for pound, Ilya Topuria doesn't have a playbook. Islam facing JDM. Marab facing Corey Sandhagen. Chimaev just fought DDP, claims he won't fight until next year. Pantoja facing Joshua Ban. Alexander Volkanovski is facing Lerone Murphy. Ankalaev is facing Pereira again. Jack Della Maddalena, I've been over him. Tom Aspinall, he was facing Cyril Gahn. For some reason, good job on doing right by Volkov. Yeah, we'll do right by you by giving you Almeida, which I still think that'll be a good fight. Alex Pereira has been a ghost ever since losing his title again. Has his rematch. DDP just lost the title. Max Holloway injured out until 2026. Max Holloway BMF, he is guaranteed on their card. I even made a video. I could have saw the rematch between Max Holloway and Ilya Taforia actually headlining over Islam and Ilya, but sadly he got injured. Really sucks. Because I really wanted, I can't talk. I wanted to see Max Holloway either fight Oliveira later than the knockout, or the name that I had in mind for him was Dan Hooker. Because I think that Dan Hooker, I think he's on a 3-5-1 streak. He's a veteran of the division. I'm like, Armand's not fighting. Armand lost his title shot. If I was Armand, I would have had a fight booked in February. I would have been like, my bad, let me get my title shot back. And he would have gained more fans from it. But no, he's tied up. These guys on this roster are some of the most entitled fighters I've ever seen in my 16 years of watching it. And you can say what you want about fighter pay. My thing on fighter pay, I want to see a fighter earn their value. I know Dana White says it, but I honestly mean it. I want a fighter who, if he's out here delivering banger performances, I don't care about his record. He can lose majority of his fights, but if I walk away and say, man, that was an incredible fight. That was a good 20 to 30 minutes spent watching these two fight. And it's one of the most it's one of the most primal feelings we have of cheering on agreed upon violence. And what I like about MMA is, and this is just going to turn into such a, you know, school ad here, but like, we have everybody in this community. We have Ariel, Jewish, we have Catholics, a lot of Mexican fighters, we have Muslims, Dagestani fighters, Bilal Muhammad, the list goes on. We got everybody, gay, straight, whatever. And these guys, at the end of every fight, 95% of the time, they're hugging. They're like, man, that was awesome, dude. Thank you. Thank you for beating the shit out of me. Thank you for helping me put on this performance for these fans. Let's run it back in the future. You don't see that in any other sport. You don't see, the Toronto Maple Leafs lose fucking Game 7 every fucking year and say, wow, that was fun. kicked out Marner for it. Marner is going to fucking go off, dude. I would not be surprised if Marner ends up winning the Ross the hard. I can see Monster sweeping. Um, and the funny thing is I trashed him the entire time he was here. Um, but he is the best player on the team. Yeah, it is what it is. Uh, so back to my point though. You know, you'll see hockey players go at it. You have fights in hockey. You'll see, you know, I forgot his name already. He got ejected from the game. Jalen Carter. Yeah, Jalen Carter spat on Dak Prescott. Got ejected from the game. Whatever. The Eagles, you're cheating. You're cheating the salary cap. You know you are. You cheat football. And you are scary. But, uh, it's, when I get on this camera every day, get on the mic, pull out my phone, and I just go over whatever it is in the sport of MMA. And, there's the funny topics, right? There's, you know, fighters trolling each other, Conor McGregor's Twitter, Chael Sonnen being Chael Sonnen. But then you have situations like the BJ Penn situation, which you guys know of everything going on in MMA. That is the one story I am paying attention to because I went through the same exact situation that he did nearly 2 years ago. And I'm around a lot of people. I go outdoors, man. Crazy. Like and I look at how much people fight over. Green, blue, black, I don't know, sports, videos, whatever it may be. It's like the point of the internet, the point of free speech, the point of free will is the fact that you are going to be faced with different challengers like the other 8 billion people on this planet, but there are common principles that God, whatever is running this universe, really wants you to comprehend. And to the rest of the world, the MMA community are savages. Roger Jackson. The MMA community are a bunch of lunatics. Which is 100% true. But again, I have been in gaming communities. I have been in um classrooms and other hobbies, whatever it may be. The MMA community is so different, and it really hit me when Ben Askren went through his situation and is still going through his situation. And weeks before that, man, you bring up Ben Askren. What was the one thing, the two words that we would all bring up? Jake Paul. And he himself laughed about it. In fact, I think he made the funniest jokes about that knockout than anyone. Than anyone on Twitter, YouTube, anywhere I've seen. And, you know, the guy, whatever you think of his physique, he has been a fucking machine his entire life. I've made my videos on Ben Askren. You can go watch his fights. You can go watch what he did in his collegiate career. was unbelievable. And it truly, and I will always say this, it truly is a shame that he never came to the UFC in his prime. But that's just how it worked out. One needed their star. The UFC has plenty, right? And it's beyond like it's beyond the fight. It really is, and you know exactly what I said. You know, we're looking at how these guys train. We look at who these guys train with. What did their teammates do? What are their teammates doing? What do they call their gym? How do they brand themselves? And you're gonna have people that criticize one camp, other camp will praise another. That's just how it is. People loved Conor McGregor. People hated Conor McGregor. Everybody has an emotion about Conor McGregor. And that is the number one thing. Whatever you do in life, you gotta show emotion. Well, whatever that emotion is, you're not gonna control it. But again, it goes back to the saying, one of Paul Heyman's sayings, where he said, well, Bubba Ray, part of the Dudley Boys, which were an old tag team. I think they're still active even. Bubba Ray Dudley went up to Paul Heyman and he said, strike a chord, sell a ticket. And when I when I applied that to this channel, the the ways that I do it, right? I have my disability. So I'm able to make my character based on me, and I can, you know, bait engagement, positive and negative, right? But like, dude, I spent I spent probably like the last 8, 9 months really focused on MMA. And during that time, like, I got friends, I go to the gym, read the Bible. But I've always been somebody where if somebody tells me something, I'm gonna go and look out. I'm gonna need to go out and find for myself. I'm gonna need to make an ass for myself and learn for myself. And that's everyone. But like, I don't know, man. It's when I was reading those tweets online about Joey Kirk, it really hit me that like, okay, 80% of the world just doesn't fucking get what they want. People will be like, it's, I'm not gonna say the name. It was the Republicans, it was the Democrats, it was this guy, that guy. More information coming out about it. I want to make a video on it, but I mean, at the same time, what good does it do to, you know, give an opinion that's gonna be conflicted? And, only time will tell what truly happened. If time will really show that, we'll really get the answer there. Again, look at everything else. Look at what they did with Diddy. Right? Like, after Diddy, man, that was the one thing to me where it's like, alright, I don't care what kind of industry it is. I don't care what kind of corporation they are. I don't believe anything that has a business number. I really don't. I really don't. The irony is, though, you need one to make money. But, like, the thing that I have that most people don't is I have really good empathy. I'm able to put myself in somebody else's shoes, and even if I disagree with them, I can say, okay, this is their view. This is why they're saying this, and this is why this tone is used here. I I've always had a really good understanding for psychology, but it was my third stay in rehab. First two stages were weed psychosis and which weed psychosis is what my doctor went with. Really, I think it was social media psychosis because I still partake, I still do my thing, right? But the difference that I made after Third North is, or yeah, I might do DDoS or something or docs or something, whatever. But what my third stay there was my first time really in life being like, all right, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go and work for something. And if I don't find something, I'm done. And like my friend actually had to call my dad. I was drunk. I had laundry detergent hidden in my room. Which, by the way, man, if you're going through shit, just open your mouth, dude. Talk to someone. Get it out in the air and just see how they respond. They respond negative, move on to the next. Eventually, somebody will come across you that can paint the picture that you don't see. And there's definitely a rise in, you know, the rate at which people are going to each side, right? You know, I and I get it. I totally get it that in a time of uncertainty, in a time of you know scared, in a time of being scared, you're gonna act sporadically. But the one thing the rehab tells you to do, don't fucking act sporadically. Stay fucking focused. You're not gonna have the world disagree with you. And that's a fact that like everybody needs to get through. Like to me it's weird because I'm antisocial as shit, right? Honestly, if nobody called me, nobody texted me, nobody commented on my videos, I would honestly just go outside, go to the gym, play some games, go to bed, read the Bible. Do the same thing that I do when I'm really around people, which I mean, and this is gonna be sad to say, but like, I've never been somebody where being around people is really made me comfortable. Like, in fact, like, big crowds, whatever maybe. And not like, it's not being scared of, like, betrayal or, like, you know, some crazy event. that I know human psychology. I know that each room, each walk you go on, each person you go by, that is a completely different psychology than what you have ever came across. Every single one of them. But the more you learn about psychology, the more you look at, the rise in addiction, right? The rise in phone addiction, drug addiction, pornography, whatever it may be. It is definitely tied to the media. And everybody says it, right? But like the part that people don't get is the problem is the public is on media way too much. The public is arguing with people who probably are fucking robots. And I'm at a point where, like, you know, I'm only 21, right? But I've been through a lot of shit. I've been through quite the amount of shit in my 21 years. Frankly, that is the best thing I'm at. Getting into shit. And once I get into shit, I fucking dig deeper. And it wasn't until really getting out of um Fifth North, right? Where whatever. I don't care. You know, it was really after that where, you know, you're around every kind of addict. There were people in there for pornography, for methamphetamine, for heroin, for this, for that, for everything. Um, Even, a person who got caught. Oh, I'm getting angry thinking about it here. A person that got caught and admitted gleefully that he ran a photo operation that harmed children. And when I was up there, um, I made a friend named Mitch. Older guy, basically looked like Uncle June from Sopranos. In fact, that was the name I called him for like the first few days that I'd known him. Um, but like, he was really smart, man. He's one of the wisest people I've ever ran into. He was raised Catholic, um, and you know, this guy had story after story, dude. So like, he told me, right, like we were all sitting at the table in the middle of the common era, right? And like we were just sharing stories of our adventures, we'll say. And he told us that he went down to Peru with his family, and he wanted to go back and obviously indulge in the cocoa leaf, which I've never done. I don't care what offers. I'm good with psychedelics. I'm good with what I do. But like this guy, it was different, right? Like you hear the word Catholic, you think okay, they're just nothing but Bible quotes after Bible quotes. But what was interesting about him is that he was completely honest with me. In fact, I would argue way too honest. But him giving me that honesty led me down the path to accepting that God exists. I believe Jesus exists. I think when you look at the stories, and again, I'm never gonna be a Bible philosopher. I'm never gonna be a priest. I'm never gonna be a reverend. The one thing I preach is individuality. Go be fucking you. whoever you want to be, don't hurt people, especially kids. Um, where was I? I forgot. But like, the more I look at the scripture and the more I dig into it, the more that I see, there's endless meanings to every single Bible verse. And you will never read a verse the same way. I don't care who reads it to you, I don't care if you read it to yourself or when you read it. Every single time you read that quote, those letters change. Not in the book, but in your head. And I think the biggest part is love your neighbor. Most importantly, mind your own fucking business. But to take us back to MMA. MMA has always been punk rock. MMA will always be the redheaded stepchild of boxing. Proudly. Because this is the most diverse community out there. It really is. You look at, 600 fighters, however many coaches they have, their families, everybody who works in the UFC, down from Dana White to, I don't know, maybe they have, door security, right? It's the thing that I love about this community is we can have fun. We can be absolute dicks and we can show up for the right thing. Which, you know what am I at here for time? I'm at 42 minutes. I think that, you know, I've already made this long video, but, you guys know where I'm gonna go. Psycho Stu GoFundMe. Hopefully I can find it here. It should be the first one that comes up. Yeah. Again, man. Anything you can do to help. Well, whether it's you want to go into church, whether it's you want to go to a new job, you want to go volunteer. Something as simple as just stopping on your walk, talking to a stranger, getting to know your neighbor. You know, eventually, yeah, you build your foundation, and everybody's foundation will be found a different way. But once again, I want to shout out Seiko Stu, his family. I've been watching some of the recovery that he's been doing. I'm a dude, Doug. I fucking love Doug, dude. His channel, dude, like he has nearly identical the same humor that I do. Which also do. I noticed the Snoochie Boochies. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I fucking love that movie. I need to go watch that movie, man. That might be what I do today. Do I chill myself out? But yeah, this has been my 50-minute ramble. Nearly. Maybe you got some out of it, maybe you did, but I've just been doing a lot of reflecting and kind of just going through a learning phase. Now I want to say what I think all of us are really feeling right now, but love you guys. Let me know what you think. I need to burp or something later.